Teachers of Reddit. What is the most disturbing thing you've heard a student say? Part 1. Story 1. I worked in group homes and schools with kids and adults with developmental disabilities. Had to remove a kid from class once because he kept whispering in a creepy voice, "Let me see it. I won't tell anyone. You know I like to look at your pretty little penis." And other variations of things that were not really okay. The kid was nonverbal 90% of the time, and when he did repeat things, it was mostly from his abuse. It was awful. Luckily, he was in a safe place by then. Still incredibly sad. Story 2. I once had a piano student who said he couldn't practice at home because his stepfather would beat him to have to listen to it. Reply 1. Leaving aside the child abuse, why would you pay for piano lessons if you aren't even going to let your kid practice? Reply 2. It was probably a music class at public school, not paid private lessons. Story 3. A child stomped on a frog. After talking with them, they told me that before killing the frog, they told it to say hi to their dad who lived in heaven. Spoke to mom about the incident, said dad lives in Florida, but told the kid they were dead. Ma'am, oh ma'am. Story 4. I had a student tell me about his parents leaving salt around the house. Bizarre, but I didn't connect the dots until they were arrested. Turns out that was cocaine. Story 5. I'm a little late. I had a student who was deathly afraid of using the bathroom because monsters who wanted to get her were in the vents. Turns out dad used to abuse her in the bathroom. Reply. This absolutely broke my heart. I hope she was able to get out of that situation and get the support that she needed. Original poster. I mean, kind of. Her dad died, mom took off and was on drugs. She was living with grandma, but they wound up homeless for a good long while. They eventually moved in with mom in another state. Haven't heard from her since then. She breaks my heart every time I think about her. Story 6. A kindergarten student drew a picture of himself floating in outer space, smiling and pointing at a giant red button on his spacesuit. I asked what the button was for. He said, "It's so I can unalive myself so I can be with Jesus." His completely embarrassed mother responded to my concerned email explaining that his portrait was likely the fruit of 2 separate conversations she'd had with him that week. The first explaining unalive bombers, the second explaining that his recently deceased grandfather was in a better place with Jesus. Kids are wild. Story 7. During my second year student teaching, a teaching unpaid internship, a student brought a few bags of heroin to school in his backpack. He pulled them out in the hallway to show his friends before recess. He said, "I brought treasure from home. My mom says it's worth more than me." The kids were oohing and eyeing. The most ducked up part is that the school expelled him. We didn't help him at all. I think about him still 9 years later. Story 8. Paraprofessional in an elementary school. A kid looked at me and casually said, "My mom died Sunday. Her funeral is next week," and shrugged. Reply 1. That's the emotional numbness you get after the cry buckets run empty and you said and thought everything 1,000 times over. Reply 2. How do you get out of that? Asking for a friend. Just turned 16. Reply 3. Eventually it passes. You just get so very tired of telling people why you were shut down. The words are very mechanical. It's a scary time for everyone around them because nobody feels like such a horrible event should be spoken of so neutrally. The fact is that it happened and lots of tears are shed, but we can't shed tears 24 hours a day. We're trying to go on with our lives and do things that are normal. We want people around us to know that we are anything but normal. We want to do normal things. So please let us do normal things and be okay without throwing up emotional barriers like, "How are you?" to answer. If we're not the most focused or most perfect at them in this instant, we need grace, but we also need to be allowed to fake it until we make it without anyone making a huge deal of it. It's okay to be numb, and it needs to be okay to be numb for as long as you need to be to start finding your new normal. And this is if you're actually asking for a friend instead of yourself. If you're trying to be there for your friend, just be there without demanding anything in return for a while. Call them, check on them, send them texts that go unanswered, and just send another one at another time. Send them memes that you find are hilarious, or TikTok videos, though watching video might be a little much early, that you find hilarious. Just keep a steady stream of what you normally do, but nothing asking of them. They literally have nothing to give at the moment. Let them know that they are important and thought of frequently and loved. Be especially aware around the deceased birthdays or significant dates during the year that are going to be harder. Holidays are especially difficult, and care packages don't hurt either. In grief, it's really common to either eat nothing or eat only the easiest things because bandwidth for anything is so limited. Showing up randomly with their favorite food so you can sit outside and eat it together, even if they don't feel like talking. Just being there is a beautiful gift. And instead of asking, "How are you?" ask what they've been up to and if they've done anything recently in whatever common interest you share. Invite them back into that interest with you in a lightweight way and be okay with it if they say not yet. Keep asking. They'll eventually be back and they won't feel awkward engaging back with you because the offer was always open. They'll fire back a TikTok or a meme or something amusing. They'll pick up the phone and call you for a change. Or they'll ask to spend time together. It won't happen fast. Story 9. A 6-year-old barely getting out the words, "My mama choked me," between tears. A second grader having a meltdown about his low grade, saying his dad was going to make him sleep outside again if he found out. These are some of the things that keep us up at night. Heartbreaking. Story 10. That his abuser used to stuff socks in his mouth while he beat him up so he couldn't scream. Story 11. Last weekend, I sent positive emails to the families of all my students because remote learning is hard and the kids are really stepping up. On Tuesday, when I saw one of my classes for the first time since sending the messages, a girl said to me, "That email you sent made my dad happy. He doesn't like me that much, and it made him like me." My heart broke for that poor girl. She's bright, friendly, and hardworking, and I asked her privately if she was safe at home and if there was anything I could do to help. She told me her dad liked her brother much better. Reply 1. We used to have some big behavioral issues at my school, elementary, and when I would sub for my coworkers, literally the only motivator these kids needed was, "I want to text mom/dad how proud of you they should be." Reply 2. I got a huge response from all the emails I sent. I sent them to all of my students' families, all 167 of them. And so many parents are used to getting bad news about their kids in school that this was a pleasant surprise. Story 12. My student recently told a story about how her dog died. She said she was staying with her aunt for a few weeks over the summer, and her dog was home with her mom. When the student returned home, she asked for the dog. Mom said she didn't know where the dog was and told the student to look upstairs. The student found the dog dead in an unused bedroom. Mom's reaction was, "Oh, I guess I forgot to feed him." Student now lives with aunt full time because mom often forgot to feed the kid too. Reply. I had a kiddo ask if she could have some of my veggies, hummus, pretzels, at a Saturday event. I thought she might have a carrot or something, but she ate it all and extremely quickly. I asked her if she forgot to eat breakfast that day, and she told me they have cereal, but she's only allowed to eat it on school days. They have to miss breakfast on the weekends to make their food last. Story 13. One of my students' parents were fighting. Dad left home and then came back to talk. They went out to the car to fight so the kids wouldn't hear. He shot and killed the mother, then himself. The girl came to school the next day and just said, "I have nowhere else to go." Reply 1. Good grief, that's heartbreaking. Original poster. I guess I'll reply here for lack of a better place. I think about her a lot. Our school has had some really traumatic incidents. It's like that when you are really a cross between small town and family. We have over 5,000 students at the high school, and inevitably there's a tragedy now and then. I wish I didn't actually know of worse things, but there you are. As far as this girl's story, her aunt picked her up and took her and her sister to Michigan. She came back to South Florida to visit once and said she was going to college. I don't know where she and her sister are now. Story 14. No one knows where my mom and dad are, or if they're even alive. A kid in a class I subbed for who is being raised by his grandmother. Story 15. Oh, so many. Frowny face. A kid came in upset, and we finally got out what the problem was. This mom told him that he caused her to miscarry because he was such a duck-up. Another kid came to school acting off. By lunchtime, he finally told someone that his dad got arrested the night before. The dad made him take off his clothes and beat the shit out of him with an electrical cord. The kid ran outside into the streets of Detroit, naked. Thank God a nice older man found him, put a blanket on him, and took him to the police. Dad got arrested, and of course, CPS got involved. CPS was looking for a placement. Kid assumed he would stay with his aunt, dad's sister, but learned that wasn't possible because that guy wasn't his dad. So within a day, kid got shit beaten out of him, found out his dad wasn't his real dad, put into foster care. Kid said something like, "My whole life is over." He was 10. Reply 1. Oh my God, I just had a flashback to being at sleepaway camp at age 11 or so. We, the campers, were all strangers before camp, and one of my cabin mates had terrible night terrors because when her dad wasn't around, her mom would beat her with an electrical cord. I have absolutely no memory of what happened after that. We did have a camp counselor who slept in our cabin, so I'd like to believe it was reported and that girl got help. I haven't thought of that in 25 years. Wherever she is out there, I hope she's safe and doing well. Reply 2. My parents thought cords and heavy belts were just more effective than hands at causing maximum pain. They were right. And my dad only stopped beating me while he was blackout because he kept slipping and punching me or letting the buckle catch my face instead of my legs and back. Now that I'm an adult, I realize I've been afraid of adults my entire life. I've never had relationships with coaches, teachers, anyone who was an adult. I thought it would change, but now I can't even make friends because at 29, everyone is an adult, and I'm still terrified of them. Edit. Thanks for the good energy from this. I just want to say, life is a wonderful thing. Being a human is one of the oddest things that can happen, I think. We all come out of the womb with cards. Some get a 2-7 offsuit, and it's just ducking hard to play from day one. Most of us get something we can play with, but might not get us the lion's share of the pot. You're given 10 jack of diamonds, call the blind, and wait on other cards to hit the table. As long as we love and experience it ourselves, we will still feel human. It will hurt and make you laugh, and it will feel warm, then cold, then too hot, or just right. Recognize those around you. Smile and wave at strangers. Be strange in your kindness, and you will overcome what you've been through. There's this biblical idea of treating those things and people who have hurt you with kindness and love. And in so, doing heap hot coals on them. We can do that daily, and it just takes effort. Story 16. There was a pond near our classroom. When I was in 6th grade, my classmate pushed my teacher's son, who was about 3 years younger than us, into the pool. Then, said classmate jumped into the pond and kept holding the kid's head underwater. The janitor jumped in and helped the kid and called our teacher. My classmate straight up said to our teacher that he just wanted to check if dead bodies really float. The pond was covered within that week, and the teacher's kid went to another school the next year. I don't know if the reason is related to the incident. I don't know what punishment my classmate got, but he continued being my classmate until graduation. Kinda shocking, to be honest, since he was nice to everyone. Story 17. The one year I taught 5th grade, I overheard a boy talking to his friends about how they should corner a female student in the bathroom and gang R-word her while someone stood watch at the door. A couple months later, he wrote a very graphic letter that was passed around class about how my giant boobs were the only reason he came to school, and went into explicit detail about how he wanted to titty duck me. This was 5th grade. He was 10. How on earth was he aware about gang R-word and titty ducking? I can't imagine what he was exposed to at home to have that kind of knowledge. I stick to the primary grades now, and I've heard some heartbreaking stories, but this one definitely sticks out as the most disturbing. Reply. In 4th grade, there were several boys who kept groping my daughter and saying sexually explicit things to her. I was shocked that boys that age already acted like that, but her teacher wasn't at all surprised. My daughter kept feeling like somehow it was her fault. The school talked to the kids about sexual harassment, but after that, the boys just did it when no one was looking, and said she was lying for attention when she told on them. We switched to online school after that. Reply 1. And you reported this, right? Obviously something was rotten in the state Denmark. Original poster. Most definitely. Nothing ever happened though. The principal had checked out and was upfront that she was no longer dealing with behavior issues. I made CPS reports both times, but never knew of any follow-up on their part. When I contacted his mom, she said he must have just overheard something on TV. He's one of the names on my list of former students that I regularly Google to make sure they're not in jail or dead. Reply 2. Take this with a grain of salt, because it's just off the top of my head. I seem to remember that abused kids, sexually or not, often show hypersexuality as a sign of abuse. So he didn't necessarily pick these things up from TV. Could very well be picking them up from the internet, if this was somewhat recent, or just mirroring other bad influence kids. Reply 3. You're 100% correct, and this is one sign that teachers are expected to look out for, and there is a legal requirement to report them. Sexual comments which are inappropriate for the student's age is a huge red flag. Story 18. I had a student who had just moved to our school, 3rd grader. His first day, he had this huge gash over his nose. I didn't know why, but I just didn't think much of it. A couple days later, I asked him what happened, and he said that his mom's boyfriend's dad pinned him against the wall and whipped him with his belt. Then showed me the marks on his back as well. He kinda laughed it off and said, yeah, he's mean. It took every ounce of me not to cry right then and there. I immediately went next door to get an adult to take over the class and ran to the principal. She called the police and they had some kind of excuse why they wouldn't be able to come right away. She demanded that they be there today because she was not sending that boy home. They did show up. They walked him home and they watched as the boyfriend's dad packed up and left. The boy was in 3rd grade, had the dirtiest mouth, and was probably one of the funniest and sweetest kids I've ever met. He did tell me that the man moved back to Samoa later that year. Mom stayed with boyfriends, so knew stuff about the man. He moved schools the next year though, so I don't know how he's doing now. Reply, LOL, my parents did the same with me. They used to beat me bad so much, I used to hide marks when I used to go to school. The teachers found out about the bruises in 2nd or 3rd grade and called my mom in ADN, asked her if she beats me. She admitted and told him, yeah, I beat him. If I don't beat him, he doesn't study. That's the only way he studies. The teacher just said, yeah, okay, and they did not do anything. I probably have had ADHD, anxiety, and depression since I was a kid, but my mom never saw it. She just put it off with me being dumb, so she used to hit me to get me to focus. I wish some teacher would have protected me from my parents when they found out I was being abused. They all think mental illness is a way God uses to torture sinners, so I don't talk about it. If I tell my teachers, they'll tell my parents, and the last time I told my parents I was suicidal, they told me to go unalive myself and kicked me out for a little while. They kept asking me why I was suicidal. I couldn't reply. I think they probably did good by beating me because I wouldn't have been able to study otherwise. I think I'm just being ungrateful. But if any teachers in Pakistan are reading this, please pay attention to kids. Most of us need help. Story 19. Quote, my dad wants to kill me with his hunting gun. Story 20. While student teaching, had a student shout, you guys want to see the gun in my backpack? He was trying to joke, but security was called and the intervention specialist kept all students away from the bag. Reply 1. My younger brother did that in Heathrow once, in front of 2 DFT officers with machine guns, with a regional accent that is often mistaken for Irish. Yeah. Reply 2. My naturally very tanned mum has metal in her back from surgery. In a country coming home and they don't speak much English and we weren't fluent in their language. She sets off the metal detector, strips off everything she can think of, and it still goes off. These dudes are raising their guns and shouting. Luckily, I was too young to realize running over to her could have gotten us both shot, as I had worked out what was going on. Had to lift her shirt in the back to show them the scar to get them to understand and back off. We have family and friends from Ireland and definitely not an accident to have and joke about guns or bombs. Reply 3. A doctor can give your mom a letter to explain the metal if she likes. My niece has one as she has cochlear implants and she can't go through the detector. So they just go over her with the wand, avoiding her head. They're very understanding. Story 21. Coach elementary PE. Had a 9-year-old student call me an infested tampon sucker. More surprised than angry. At the time I was 23 and never heard an insult like that. Story 22. I was teaching a high school jewelry/metal shop class and some students alerted me to one student trying to sneak out some of the metal files. When confronted, he said he wanted to use them to stab people in the halls. I had him removed permanently, to say the least. Reply. Coworkers told me a sad story of a boy who had weapons in his backpack. Other students came forward one day and said, Mrs., we think you should look in that boy's backpack. There's some stuff in there that's not allowed. These boys were usually happy-go-lucky, and this time they were clearly worried themselves. Teachers found tools in the backpack which might seem chill, but there was definitely something off, like 2 hammers and a couple screwdrivers which had been filed down. After some discussion and the sad story came to light, the boy was not in a safe home. His father, or stepfather, I'm not exactly sure, was abusive to the boy and his mother. Apparently, they had recently had a confrontation and the boy was sent to stay at a friend/neighbor's house. He stole the tools from the workshop in that house, pretty much grabbed anything he could in the moment he had, anything he thought he could use to defend his mom next time. The kid was 13. Story 23. It wasn't a student, but his father. A guy came up to me on parents' night and told me to call him if his kid needs a good yelling, since his kid was such a useless duck-up. While I stood there in shock, he added, he's always been lazy, but he's been worse since his roommate at his last school unalived himself. Don't hesitate to call me if he pulls that bullshit. Duck that guy. Reply. For real, what a D-word. I'm hoping the kid is doing well now. Call me if the dad needs a good yelling, since he's such a useless duck-up. Original poster. I wish I knew. I wrote his college rec and was brutally honest about how much I respected the man he grew into despite his parents. He went to college about 5 years ago and we lost touch. I hope he's okay and found friends to be his family. Story 25. A preschool student when I was student teaching in the 3-year-old classroom was well known for violent behaviors. We had removed anything from the classroom that we thought could view as a weapon. One day he grabs a classmate from behind, wraps an arm around him, draws a vaguely knife-shaped puzzle piece from behind his back, and accurately acts out slitting his throat. In an eerily emotionless voice, he then announces, "You are dead. I killed you. I will kill all of you." Same kid would throw epic tantrums that often involved flipping or throwing furniture, destroying anything within reach, and building barricades out of the classroom furniture and shelves. We generally try to remove the other children from the classroom during these and just stay safe waiting him out. After one truly incredible and destructive tantrum, he had finally worn himself out and was quiet. As I guided him out of his corner fortress, I explained the other children were on the playground, but before he could join them, he would need to help clean up the mess he had made. Wide-eyed, he looked at the destroyed classroom and asked, in what sounded like genuine shock and confusion, "I did that? Are you sure?" Teaching in a different state, 3-year-old boy with developmental delays and bruises tells me very angrily, "Mommy hit me, mommy kicked me, tummy hurt, Ow, no, I'm not bad. CPS had just recently returned him to his mother and did not appreciate my frequent calls or critique of their performance of their job, or lack thereof. He also acted out to us that he was locked in a closet when Daddy was there. His father was unknown, and we think Daddy was actually a different client of his mom's.